Over the last couple years, we have talked about how the future of crypto will not be dead set by just one network, that we are headed into a multi-chain future. And this has actually allowed us to come to the realization that some of these projects can work together. This is also why I said for years, the argument of which one of these projects are better than the other, it's just nonsense. It's a low IQ discussion. So when we think about that, right? I've always said that XRP and HBAR, these two can work together in large ways. Well, recently, we found out that there seems to be some pretty big moves being made on the back end of this space with names like Swift, which if we do know about Swift, 11,500 plus institutional players are tied back to the Swift network. So, when we think about this, it's a very big deal. Now, this does include both XRP and HBAR, two very prominent utility-based projects that I talk about almost on the daily on this channel, and it's because of these reasons, right? It's because of the connections to some big names like Swift, but it's also the fact that these networks have been battle tested. You know, a lot of people say, oh, no, it's not going to be XRP. No, it's not going to be HBAR. It's going to be this new crypto project that just came out. Why would these players tap into these networks or these projects that have not been battle tested? XRP has been around for well over a decade now. It's been trialed. It's been tested by some of the largest names out there, like even the Bank of England. So when we think about this, my eyes are on these networks that have been battle tested, that have been, ran through trials, because they are the ones that they know work. Now, if we think about this, let's talk about a few things. Number one, it seems as though Cardano is getting on the same train here. We have here, it would be an honor and pleasure to be present, working together with Charles Hoskinson from Cardano and other leaders within the crypto ecosystem. And we have here from Digital Asset Investor, had a great conversation with Brad about XRP. Check it out, guys.
And it was a great round table. Sergey Nazarov was there, Anatoly from Solana. We got Ilya from Near and Brad from XRP. Some nice people, man. And it was good to see some old friends, some new friends, and make some deals here and there. Everything's coming along. Midnight's coming along really well. Cardano's coming along really well. We're pushing forward. Redemptions are looking strong, over 70,000, give or take, about 1.6 billion worth of tokens so far redeemed. And we just keep pushing forward. 60 days plus the scavenger hunt plus remorseful redemption pool. It's a really nice layered way of distributing a token and getting a lot of other ecosystems involved. In fact, I had a great conversation with Brad about XRP, and it'd be a lot of fun to do something there. So Lace is going to support XRP before the end of the year. I'd love to do a joint event with some of the people on that side of the aisle and see if we can get John Deaton there, a few others. But overall, kind of pushing forward. And it's a broad ecosystem, 8 ecosystems, 7 blockchains, Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and XRP and Avalanche and BNB. Go down the list. It's a lot of good people. And it's going to be one of the largest, if not the largest airdrops of all time. So I had lunch today with JJ, and I said, we needed a dedicated Near team, a dedicated XRP team. We need a dedicated team for Brave of people that are account managers that do nothing but talk about the long arc commercial.
Now is the best time to lock in with iTrust Capital, where you could tap into their Roth IRA crypto-designed platform or even their premium custody account that allows you to hold crypto safely and soundly. You never have to worry about if your crypto is going to disappear overnight because this is a closed loop system. Assets are held one-to-one off balance sheet, US-based live client service, institutional custody, tax reporting, and 24/7 365 buying and selling. I personally love the Roth IRA side of their platform. It's incredible, especially for tax advantaged trading as well as holding crypto. If you guys do want to tap into this, you guys are more than welcome to utilizing my link down in the description below and my promo code as well, where you deposit $1,000 and they give you an additional $100 funding bonus. What are you guys waiting for? Sign up today. You won't regret it. So obviously, yeah, there's open discussions happening in this space about how these big players can work together. And I think that this is great. I think that this is something that this space should have had, for years now, instead of this back and forth competitive mindset. And it really wasn't a competitive mindset between, the creators of some of these networks or even the companies that utilize some of these networks. Because again, with Ripple, Ripple taps into XRP and the XRP ledger. Yes, some of the players from Ripple did create the XRP ledger, but for the most part, XRP and Ripple are two different things. However, we've always had these discussions about like, oh no, Ripple is going to kill this company, and XRP is greater than this project. And here to find out, it was mainly just the communities that thought this. It wasn't the prominent names around some of these networks that thought this, because again, they were thinking, how can we work together? How can we come together and make sure that crypto is this next big thing? And I think that that's exactly what's happening right now. Now, on top of this, if we go over here, we have from Smoke Dog, major collaboration underway. Ripple, Cardano, and Hedera selected to power a cutting-edge blockchain risk mitigation framework. The Global Blockchain Business Council, by the way, the GBBC has been working with some big names in this space like Hedera for years now. Very large organization, and we need to focus on them. I'll actually give you guys an insight on them here in a second. But they have revealed a new risk mitigation framework, RMF. This is a global standard built with direct input from Ripple, Hedera, Cardano, the DTCC, and other major players. What it does, it helps regulated financial institutions manage non-financial risk of blockchain compliance, tech resilience, and financial crime prevention. It aligns with global regulatory standards like MiCA and NIST quantum computing security. The rollout is phase 1 is Q3 of this year. It focuses on blockchain infrastructure. By 2026, it will be expanding to payments and native crypto assets like XRP, HBAR, and ADA, subjecting them to direct regulatory assessments. Why this matters? XRP, HBAR, and ADA are ISO 20022 compliant, which technically speaking, this is not correct. Again, I always hate the whole idea of ISO 20022 compliant being like a major thing. The thing about ISO 20022 compliant, the network that they're tied to, okay, because again, these are gas tokens. The network that these could be tied to, like for an example, RippleNet, yeah, that's ISO 20022 compliant. The underlying assets are not, and they don't have to be. They don't even have to have anything to do with ISO 20022. The main thing about ISO 20022 itself, the standard, is that it allows for these crypto projects to be tapped into the traditional system, which we'll also go over in this video. So this doesn't really matter too much, but this framework puts their compliance and integration under the same scrutiny as traditional finance. Partnerships with institutions like the DTCC, the backbone of U.S. securities clearing, signal that these networks are syncing with top-tier financial infrastructure. In simple terms, by 2026, regulatory oversight will shape how XRP, HBAR, and ADA operate in payments and finance. The fact that these blockchain leaders are helping design the framework shows just how central they are to the future of global financial infrastructure. And here we have the full document itself. So let me just open this up in a new tab. So here we have what is the risk mitigation framework. Here it is, just breaking it down. Then on the left side, we do have the core contributors. We could see that there's a lot of big players from the space. The observer is the World Bank. Confirmed phase 2 is Canton Foundation, which we already know about the Canton network. Massive network, tied back to some of the largest banks out there. But again, when we think about what's happening here, this is those steps taken in order to have these types of projects tapped in a huge way around traditional finance and around the traditional financial system. But if we think about all of this collaboration, right, like we know that these players have been collaborating in the past. Mance Harmon and Brad Garlinghouse, they met recently at the White House. This was a big deal. Again, not a lot of people put a lot of weight behind this. If you remember that video clip, I think it's back a year ago now. I'm pretty sure Max from the space, I forgot his full name, but he had an interview with Brad Garlinghouse as well as Lehman Baird, where they talked about how they can collaborate within this space in a big way to make sure that the future of Web3 is reality, and also make sure that they can design, core pieces that enable it as well. And, that was definitely a great discussion with Hedera and Ripple. They also did talk about Algorand a bit. But then also when we think about the GBBC, we go back to just January of this year, where this was Davos, actually. It was the annual Blockchain Central Davos 2025. The agenda was all panels, topics, and timings are subject to change, which they do break down the agenda. Right off the rip, we have panel, what is crypto good for, in partnership with Ripple. Again, you had Pat Thelen there. Yeah, you also had Filecoin present. This is the founder and chief executive officer of Crypto Accounting Group. And then you also had the MME Legal as well. Outside of that, you also have the fireside chat, scaling enterprise-grade tokenization opportunities and challenges. And this was with Hedera. This was in partnership with Hedera. And then also in terms of the actual supporters, Ripple and Hedera were, both a major supporter of this event. But then when we think about the GBBC, we know how big they are, right? 500 institutional members. We can see that here. 284 ambassadors across 124 jurisdictions and disciplines as well. And if we're thinking about this, just take a quick look at all of the alliances and the councils that they actually have. This is a massive, massive name around this space, but also even around the traditional system. And then when you look at the ambassadors as well, right, you could scroll through here and actually tap any of these names. And I can almost guarantee you that these names are coming from some very prominent, organizations, banks, you name it. So again, when we think about how big some of these organizations are and, who's working with them, they are massive names. And again, they're tied back to Ripple. They're tied back to Hedera. They're tied back to some, of these great utility-based projects that we talk about on a day-to-day basis. Now, on top of this, the Swift Chief Innovation Officer praised this collaboration with Ripple, Hedera, and Cardano. He actually called it commendable work. Here we have the breakdown. So, commendable work by the GBBC and Oliver Wyman for advancing industry dialogue on this important topic. The framework rightly highlights that while blockchain technology introduces new opportunities, it also creates a non-financial risk that must be addressed in order to achieve safe and sustainable adoption at institutional scale. So again, why are we seeing Swift, involved in this so heavily? Well, it's because Swift has also been preparing to tap in to blockchain for so long, right? Like we even go over here and we have from Coin Bureau, Swift to choose Ripple or Hedera. Veneer Assets reports that Swift is working to bridge traditional finance with blockchain, highlights XRP and HBAR as leading contenders in the global payment space. This development could also benefit crypto-related payment networks such as XRP and HBAR, known for fast, low-cost transfers. It comes alongside Swift's ongoing transition to the ISO 20022 standard, which enhances the richness and usability of financial data across borders. And yeah, listen, Swift has been really kind of preparing for this phase for so long. Even if we think about going back to October 3rd of just last year, we have live trials of digital asset transactions on Swift to start in 2025. And this is where we do see starting next year, banks across North America, Europe, and Asia will embark on live trials of digital assets and currency transactions over the Swift network. So they're already preparing to move these types of assets over the traditional network. Just wait until they actually tap into these networks to move money over these networks as well. By the way, Chief Innovation Officer at Swift, as new forms of value emerge, our intention is to continue offering our community the ability to seamlessly make and track transactions of all kinds of assets using the same secure and resilient infrastructure that is integral to their operations today. Again, when we're thinking about this, we look at just this bottom sentence. Recent experiments have proven our capacity to connect public and private blockchains, interlink central bank digital currencies on a global scale, and integrate multiple digital asset and currency networks as well. They want to integrate these networks into their system. They are ready to integrate these networks into their system. This is coming from Swift's website itself. Again, this is so much proof that you need to know about what's happening with these big players like Swift and these utility networks that we talk about, but also ISO 20022. So again, like I said in the beginning of this video, digital assets, they don't have to be compliant with ISO 20022, right? What ISO 20022 is and why this standard is so important is because of what it does and what it means for these institutional players. We look at the benefits, right? So right off the rip, data gets improved greatly. This is great to see because again, it's more richer, it's better in general, and also it's more transparent. We also have quality data means quality payments, improved analytics, less manual intervention, supporting end-to-end automation. This is great. But then the next step here is using modern technology. Okay, well, now we could start to tap into new technologies as well because of all of this. Once we have all of this in place, we could tap into new networks. In fact, if we think about what we heard in the past from some very large, prominent names, institutional names, they have told us that this standard enables the connection between these public networks and these crypto networks. For example, we go over here. Deutsche's website had this on it. This is with Standard Chartered's global head of transaction banking. We could use ISO 20022 to bridge between traditional and decentralized finance. We see a very large number of payment service providers native on ISO 20022 and also quite a lot of coin providers. They include Circle's USDC and Ripple's XRP, he added. We could use ISO 20022 to bridge between traditional and decentralized finance. When you then take the rich data into that and combine it, you have almost the perfect innovation system. Developing a point Nankova had made that ISO 20022 adoption really had to be looked at in conjunction with new technologies. Because again, when you have all of this in front of us, we can create a crazy, new, innovative, and extremely disruptive financial system. Something that we've never had before in history. This is why I keep saying that all of these key pieces are coming together at a perfect time. Because again, ISO 20022, the timeline is already here, right? November 2025 is when we start to see the next major release, and then that's the end of coexistence. Then we have one more release in November of 2026, and then ISO 20022 moves into the worldwide adoption phase. I'm telling you guys right now, things are starting to move extremely fast here. And we already know that Swift has been beginning live digital asset trials. Most of this will begin in November of this year as well. They said that it was going to handle like $150 trillion in transactions. We don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we do know one thing. Swift is ready to tap into crypto, tap into digital asset networks in a big way. And this is extremely exciting, especially for XRP and HBAR holders, because we know that these two have been battle tested. These two are extremely scalable. They have been around for years now. So again, when we look at these documents that tell us about XRP and HBAR, I really don't think that this is, fake news. I don't think that it's something that is unbelievable because again, when we think about it, we've been saying this for years on how these networks are, they're like some of the most efficient networks that this space has to offer. And the companies behind them, the teams behind them, they've been telling us, hey, we want to change the way that money moves around the world. We want to change the financial system. So what better way than to integrate these and tap into these from a Swift perspective?